Here's my home screen that I built it off of. And there's a couple things we want to keep in mind. Whenever we take that into our control center illustration, we want to make sure we're able to blur that home screen, but we want to keep the edges of the screen nice and sharp. And what I get a lot of times is people will do the blurring part, but not only will they blur the screen, but then the edges of their home screen are also really soft. And if you compare that to your phone, whether you've got an Apple phone or an Android phone or whatever you've got, you'll see that that's not what happens with those edges, you know? So, kind of keep those sorts of things in mind. And this follows the same building pattern that I demonstrated whenever we first started talking about the phone. So if I create, I'm just going to leave this up, I'm just going to create a new document that's 17 by 11, which is the size of our page, horizontal, create that, and then I'm just going to place my home screen body into it, which I think this is the one that I use. Place that. I'll make sure it's centered on my artboard. Base, and I'll lock that down. And then I'll make a layer to place the screen on. And basically the way I went about all of that was I just went back to my home screen and I grabbed all of my icons as well as the screen artwork. Select all of that, copy it, and come back to this document over here. And if I just do a paste in place, it's going to drop it precisely into my phone exactly where I want it. This is why when I build stuff, I center things up on artboards and try to reuse elements, because it makes things like this just exactly that simple. And I don't have to be moving stuff around, trying to line things up, and that sort of thing. So that's all the contents of my home screen. And now I just need to blur it. If I just take this and select it all, group it together, go up to my effects menu, and I'm just going to go down to blur and do a Gaussian blur. I'll kind of adjust that to see what I think looks about right. Mine's right in the 30 range, somewhere like that. Say okay. Did I do this one right? Yeah. And why didn't I do it right? The edges are blurry. So, how do you think anybody want to take a stab on what I should actually do there with that? To make that right?
Clipping mask?
Mm-hmm.
Clipping mask?
Yep. Clipping mask. And what I can do is, because I pasted all of this right in, all I really need to do is grab the background. Actually, I should ungroup it. Grab that background, and if I go up to Object, Clipping Mask, I can just release the clipping mask and use the one that I copied, that I brought in. And basically what I'll do is I'll select everything else, blur it, and then I'll apply that mask to it again. So if I select everything and then deselect the clipping mask, I'll group these all together. Now I can go back and blur them. I'll just make sure I send that to the back. And now I can select that blurred image along with my clipping mask, object clipping mask make, and now it's nice and sharp. And then all of my other elements, if I pop back over here, they just go on top of it. And again, I keep my layers all separate so that it's easy to work on. And now I can just lock down my screen and I can put my control center icons in here. And, you know, the Gaussian blur that I applied is the Photoshop Gaussian blur. But my document's 300 dpi, it's 11 inches tall. That's going to be plenty big, I think, for anything I need to use it for in my cell sheet. But it's something we're going to have to make sure we pay attention to whenever we build our cell sheets. So, but I just kind of wanted to show that real fast because I don't think I really talked about it at all. So that's, you know, adding all that in. And then, like I said, the control panel stuff. If you think, and actually, I don't know, I go back and forth on this. Sometimes when I see it, I think it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It may actually be we want to darken that back a little bit. And if that's what we think we need to do, we can always still, once I've done this, if I double click on it, I can go in to my assets, or inside of the clipping mask. I could lay a black panel over it if I wanted to. Go to my properties, down here to opacity. Maybe I just drop that back to about 15%, something really low. But see how it kind of gets gray? This is why I would go in and multiply a little bit. So if you think you need to darken up your background, you can do it that way. But again, we're just kind of reusing, you know, as we work our way through, we're just reusing elements we've already built all the way through, trying to reuse stuff to get as much distance out of it as we can. Make sense? Okay. I think some of you are starting to work on your control centers, and some of you aren't as close. But that I wanted to make sure I kind of showed you that before we went real far. So just make sure that you keep, you know, that same grid pattern whenever you place your icons on top of it, because, like I said, the grids really do line up. Mine are fairly close, but make sure you're outlining all your type and all of that good fun stuff as well. The other thing I would say too on these, when you're done, you know, don't be afraid to go back and look at stuff. I mean, and make sure things are readable, make sure things come across as what they actually are, you know. If you've created your speaker on the phone, for instance, but you get done and you're kind of examining it and it just seems to sort of disappear when we're looking at it at a regular size, don't be afraid of going in and making adjustments to that so that it's got some visibility at all sizes. That's another thing I see a lot that I wanted to make sure I mentioned. We're matching the source material as close as we can, but at some point, we've got to look at it and say, am I seeing all the parts that are supposed to be there? Do they all telegraph well? Do they come across to the viewer looking at them? And if they don't, then, make some adjustments. I mean, I think if you look at this, I think you'll recognize that really my speaker, and this is just one way of approaching it, this is how I approached it. Really my speaker, I've got a light inside and a dark outside, rather than a real dark inside and a light colored grill. I kind of did what I thought I needed to do so that it looked best at the average size that I look at it. I don't care how you go about it. It should just be visible. You should be able to tell what it is, So most people are not going to view it like this. Just things to kind of keep in mind as you work your way through it. All right? Yes. Okay. So, but anyway, just real quickly, I wanted to show you how that blurred background happens, and I wanted to point out a common mistake that people make. All right?